Raising the Bets is brought to you by the StarQuest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give. You're listening to Raising the Bets, a family podcast of pirates and penguins. We're a Catholic couple raising 5 kids outside of Boston. Join us as we share the joys and challenges of marriage, homeschool, and our adventures near and far as we make sense of the world and experience the best parts of our culture. I'm Dominic Bettinelli.
And I'm Melanie Bettinelli.
And we're boozecasting. It's a couple days before New Year's.
It's New Year's Eve.
It's New Year's Adam, because Adam comes before Eve.
No. No.
It's just no.
No.
And so today we have some store-bought eggnog.
Yes.
I made the homemade eggnog, the Alton Brown recipe, the other day, which I still have to make that again.
Yes,
It's a bit involved. So but the store-bought stuff is a adequate substitute.
And we laced it liberally with amaretto.
Amaretto di Sarona Amaretto, which is a lovely almond liqueur, it's Italian liqueur, and it is tasty. I just want to drink it instead of talk to you, but I will talk to you instead. So we had a lot to catch up on. It's been a while. I mean, it's been a whole week of Christmas since the last time we talked, and so we had kind of previewed what our Christmas Eve was going to be like. So let's talk about how our Christmas Eve went. How did it go, Melanie? How was your Christmas Eve?
It was good. It was
good.
it's like almost a week ago, but yeah, it was good.
Yeah, it was very busy. We got the last bit of the cooking done.
There was a lot of baking.
Yeah,
and cooking and
making lobster.
You did the lobster.
I cooked. I went to the store early this time, which I think was the key. Usually I go there in the afternoon, the lobster barn, and it's packed. Everybody's in there. We went early, like at 10 when they opened, and it was hardly anyone in there. Perfect. That's where I'm gonna go from now on.
Did you make a note on your planner to?
Yeah, of course. I have reminders in my reminder app going out several years from now. I am a reminder kind of guy, and so the interesting thing is I usually buy the smallest lobsters, the pound and a quarters, but they said they were all spoken for. They were all reserved. I had to buy pound and a halves. So I got a bunch of pound and a halves.
Oh no, you had to buy the big ones?
I had to buy the big. I had to.
Oh, you poor thing.
Yes. I mean, it's like a quarter pound extra. The economics of how they price lobsters is kind of weird to me, but because even if it was the same price at every weight class, you'd still be paying more, but you're paying even more for getting a slightly larger lobster per pound. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's not incremental. It's I don't know. Don't quote me on the math because I am not a math guy. Anyway, so we got the lobster.
You're not paying the same price per pound. You're paying more per pound for a bigger lobster.
Right. There's a price at the 1 1/4 mark. There's a price at the 1 1/2 mark, and then there's a price at the 2 pound and up mark. They don't usually. Those are like the jumbos. Those are the big ones, and those are a lot more expensive. So I got lobsters for everyone except for you. You didn't want one.
Yeah.
And so that was fun. So we cooked them all. We had lobster races before we cooked them. We didn't race them. I put them all on the floor so
not
the kids
really races.
could gawk at them. But then they go into the pot. They went and cooked them up early. And we'll talk about eating the dinner later. But so how did you think mass went? So the plan was to go to midnight mass.
We went to midnight mass. It was
the timing. How's the timing? So we got everybody up right around. What, 11?
11:15. It was at least 11:15.
We were cutting it close because I wanted to be out of the house at 11:30 because we were hoping that Ben and Bella could serve at midnight mass, and for that you need to be there usually quarter till the mass time, 15 minutes ahead of the mass time, and it takes 15 minutes to get there. But we had miscommunicated, and so they're just getting out of bed at 11:15, and I wasn't sure they were gonna make it. To mass. I mean, they were all getting dressed, which was a bonus this year, right?
Yeah, I mean, we had one child who was disoriented and does not remember being woken up and wandered around in pajamas, and then sort of the memories start like
somewhere mid grump.
Yeah, somewhere mid getting dressed.
Yeah. So we did manage to get out of the house, on time.
Well, sort of on time, except what we'd forgotten
Yes.
was that at the very last minute, like Sunday before, they had announced that there was going to be some kind of
Program starting at
presentation
11:30
thing at 11:30, and we did not have any idea what that was.
It just involving the Vietnamese sisters, whatever that meant. These Vietnamese sisters that somebody knew something about and just assumed that everybody else knew.
Right. We did not know who these Vietnamese sisters are, where they came from, or I mean, obviously Vietnam, but like what's the association with the parish?
Which does not have a Vietnamese community in it, as far as I can tell.
Are they actually like Vietnamese sisters, like they live in Vietnam and they're just here for a visit, or are they Vietnamese sisters from a Vietnamese parish somewhere in the area?
Still not clear on that, frankly.
I really don't know.
In any case, as we get there at 11:45, they're singing.
The sisters were singing
hymns.
Hymns.
There were all these. I don't want to be stereotypical, but they were all tiny. They were all these tiny little Vietnamese sisters.
Yes, they were all standing in the front of the church, each of them holding a candle and singing. And we got there right as they were beginning Silent Night, which they sang both in English and Vietnamese.
And of course, we were completely disruptive. This family of 7 coming in, trying to get into a pew, children being recalcitrant, and
everyone trying to figure out where to sit. And
and we're making a scene.
And of course, there are people in our usual pews, so we're like having to sort of we ended up splitting pews, and half of us sat in front of the other half.
Yeah.
Which was fine. I mean, it was fine. Like nobody really cared.
Right. But the sisters were their singing was beautiful. Although I have to say, when they sang in Vietnamese, the European hymns, because Stille Nacht is a German hymn, but it didn't quite fit. It was kind of dissonant, because a lot of Asian languages, it's not just the words you say, but how you say them that gives them the meaning, and so you have to say them a certain way, and it kind of didn't quite work with the tune.
I mean, it was beautiful, but it was not the same as just translating Silent Night into a different
language,
European language,
right? Which isn't meant as a criticism. It just was different. It was weird.
But my favorite part, we can't skip this.
Okay,
is that during the middle of Silent Night, which was the last of the hymns that they sang,
right?
We had 3 sisters bring the baby Jesus to the manger, dressed in costume.
Yes.
One of them was
3.
There was an angel, and there was Mary and Joseph, and they were wearing the costumes on top of their habits.
Yes,
of course. And so,
including
the angel had a beautiful light up halo, like it probably came like from the Halloween store, you know.
Yes, and it was blinky
and fluffy light up wings.
Yes,
and Joseph had this amazing beard and wig, like very, very bushy brown wig.
It was like Zac Efron costume.
It was awesome. I loved it. And
on top of her habit,
on top of her veil and wimple, like you could see the edge of the just barely.
Because we may be cosplaying as Joseph here, but we're not giving up the veil and wimple of that we've taken as our vow, right?
Right. So they processed very solemnly up to the manger, Mary holding the baby Jesus and Joseph walking with her, and the angel in front holding a candle. It was beautiful. I loved it. It was a wonderful touch.
I mean, we kind of amused here, but it was very beautiful. And in fact, I kind of wish we'd seen the whole. So it was a concert. They came and they sang. And I do miss out that we didn't get to see the whole thing.
Although I'm not sure that the kids would have made it through Mass plus concert. As it was, Lucy spent the first 20 minutes, 25 minutes maybe of Mass crying because she had a cramp in her leg. And then she eventually fell asleep sometime during the readings. And then she was on my lap. I was holding her.
The 7-year-old.
The 7-year-old. Through communion. I carried her up to communion.
No, of course, she disputes that she was asleep, but she was out.
Right. Now, she's a very small 7-year-old. She's like 40 pounds.
But then you put the jacket on, and she's like this huge, bulky puff.
Right.
Yeah.
Anyway, so it was...
Small or not, yeah.
She was very glad she went. She said it was beautiful, and she enjoyed herself, but I kind of had a backache by the end of Mass.
So the plan was because the altar serving at our parish is so loosey-goosey, there's no set schedule, something. We were hoping that if we show up on time, Ben and Bella could serve at Mass. well, we again not taking into account this concert. When we get there, we see the altar servers, 4 altar servers, standing in the entryway out to the sacristy, all vested and stuff. So it's like, at this point, it's too late for you to go and get, integrated into what they're doing, because especially on Christmas Eve, you have the incense, you have extra stuff, and you'd have to know about it. It just wasn't going to work. So I think they were a little disappointed
at first, but I think by the end, they were both really tired, and I think they were kind of glad to be able to sit down.
Poor Isabella was so exhausted. Like, I had to have her sit next to me.
It wasn't just that she was tired, though. Actually, she was having some
low blood sugar.
Not low blood sugar, low blood pressure. Like, she was blacking out.
Was she really?
Yes.
Oh.
She was like spots in front of her vision, and like the sound was going in and out. She didn't
realize that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I just thought she was falling asleep.
She's been having some like low blood pressure where she stands up too quickly and like her vision goes black.
Well, it's not good. We should talk to her
pediatrician
about that. Yeah.
This was more than just I'm tired.
She was flopping over the pew, and I was like, I was afraid she'd flop onto the guy next to her, so I had her move over, sit next to me, which was fine.
Yeah, poor thing. She didn't really know what to do, and she did not.
But
she didn't know she could sit down. Just sit down.
Just sit down when everyone else was standing.
And she was separated from me by 3 children, so I couldn't reach her.
And you had a kid in your lap.
And just say, sit down. It's okay.
Yeah. So, but the Mass was beautiful. Father Michael always does a wonderful job. So reverent. He did the first Eucharistic prayer, the Roman canon, which takes.
I love it. It's beautiful.
It's beautiful, but long. But still, it's Christmas Eve. Christmas deserves it. And but it was 1:30 by the time we were. Oh, and he didn't skimp on the homily. The Father it was almost like a stereotypical Nigerian priest. They like in Nigeria they'll preach for 2 hours. Like, he gives short homilies of like 25 minutes, but he gave a full homily, which was great. But it was 1:30 by the time we got out of there. By the time we get home, and we trundled them off to bed, it was 2. It was 2:00 in the morning.
Yeah, and then of course
Santa had to show up afterward and put things out and all that sort of stuff. And
yeah, it was late.
Yeah,
it was a very late night, but we got to sleep in.
Yes, and that's the nice thing is they're at the stage, and especially here's a tip: if you keep them out at midnight mass, they're not going to get up at 5:00 in the morning. So it was like 9 before people started trundling out there, like bundling themselves out of bed.
I have no idea when anyone else got out of bed. I didn't get out of bed until
like 9 at least.
9.
Yeah. Sophie's always the first one up, and this was no different. She was up before everybody, later than her usual, but we're up. And our thing is we get up, and then once everybody's up, we open up the presents. There's not a ton of presents under the tree. I mean, everybody gets basically a stocking with some stuff in it.
See, they had stockings with candy, and everybody got a Christmas ornament, and everybody got a book. Everybody got a Lego set. And that's,
I didn't get a Lego set.
Oh, the kids got books, Lego sets, and Christmas ornaments.
Just saying. I wouldn't have said no.
You got a Star Wars tie.
I did get a Star Wars tie. You start with the Rebel Alliance subtly on it. So it was very nice. I wore that to Mass this week. And you got some...
I got a travel watercolor set.
Yeah.
I got a nice watercolor set last year, but this is like the nice little travel kit.
You put in your bag.
And some watercolor paper and some really pretty red gloves.
Yes, you did.
And
yes,
so it was nice morning. We after we opened presents, then everybody had giant cinnamon rolls.
Right, that Melanie had made the day before, and then frosted that morning with that frosting we talked about, the icing, cream cheese icing,
cream cheese and orange frosting.
Oh, so good.
So I actually did an experiment with these cinnamon rolls. I made them with almond flour. A little bit of almond flour in with the wheat flour, and that worked okay.
Mm-hmm.
I thought they were a little bit too sweet. I probably should have cut the sugar a little bit. They were very rich.
Yeah, they were a little bit. Yeah, it wouldn't have hurt it to have a little less sugar. So the other thing that, speaking of opening presents, one of the things that the kids do is they make presents for each other, and they are so creative and funny.
That was the best part of Christmas morning, honestly.
Yes. So, for example. So Lucy made drawings for everyone.
Yes.
She made a drawing of the office for me with office chairs with all the legs.
They look like little octopi. They were awesome.
They were awesome. And then what did she say to Bella?
Okay, so she did a couple Christmas trees. One of them went to Bella and one of them went to me. And to Bella, she presented it with a huge hug and said, "Thank you for inspiring me."
Oh, so sweet.
It was the best. I was like almost in tears.
And Ben is so generous. Ben gives away, like, he doesn't just give stuff that he finds around. He gives away prized possessions, things that he loves. So he gave Isabella his Civil War cap that we got at Gettysburg.
Right. This was his memento, his souvenir from Gettysburg, and he gave it to her. He said, I know you really like the Confederates, and so here's a cap. Because Bella has become, since we came back from Gettysburg, she's become a real Civil War buff. She's read all the Time Life books from the town library.
Yep.
And she's got a little bit of remorse because when we were there, she didn't really she was torn. She kind of wanted the soldier cap, but she also really saw a sunbonnet that she really liked, and she ended up going with the sunbonnet. So Ben kind of knew that, and so he gave her his
very sweet
cap. And he had bought the Confederate cap because he wanted to be able to have battles with Anthony and Lucy, who had got the Union caps.
Right.
Just to be clear.
Yes. And then he gave someone else something like that. I forget what it was. One of his toys. And
he gave I think he gave Lucy a little truck that was one of his prized trucks.
Right.
And Sophie gave Lucy a stuffed animal that she'd made for herself a couple years ago, a little stuffed dinosaur made out of felt.
And Bella gave her the doll scarf that she knit.
Yeah, Bella crocheted a scarf for Lucy's doll. And Lucy had seen Bella starting it, but didn't know it was for her, and it had sort of just disappeared after it was done. And Lucy was surprised and thrilled. "You made it for me? I didn't know you were making it for me."
And then there were the joke gifts. Anthony was given a Star Wars trading card that had one of the sand skiffs from The Last Jedi. The ones that it's a land speeder essentially. But whoever had created this card set it in space. It's against a starfield, and they gave it to Anthony knowing how that would bug him so much because it's not a spaceship.
It's not a spaceship, and it's in space. It's a land vehicle. How can they do that? He dramatically fell onto the ground because he was so offended, and everybody laughed uproariously.
Yes.
It was perfect.
I mean, he was performing.
Oh yeah, totally. It was perfect.
Yeah, so there's a lot of that sort of gift giving among them, and you're right. It is the best part of the morning to see them doing that for each other. But one of the things that we do that we've picked up as a tradition from your family is that while Santa shows up on Christmas night, Christmas Eve, and Christmas Day with a handful of gifts, the real family gift giving, the stuff between siblings and from parents to kids and all that sort of stuff, that happens on the Feast of the Epiphany, which is this year. Well, it's every year. It's January 6th, but it's celebrated on the first Sunday. Liturgically, is it the first Sunday after New Year's or after the Sunday after New Year's? Or I forget I can never keep track of that. But it's January 6th is the actual date, and that's when we do it. Is on the date.
Well, depends on how busy we are and stuff.
Right. So, but that's when we exchange family gifts.
Right.
Because that's when Jesus got his gifts.
Right. My parents always did family gifts at Epiphany, and so that's kind of the tradition I wanted to maintain.
I never asked your parents why they started this.
Oh, I don't know. I
mean, was it purely mercenary to catch the sales after Christmas to buy Christmas gifts?
I don't think that was the entirety. I know that for a while, I mean, I'm called Melanie after the parish that they went. They attended briefly, occasionally, a Byzantine parish when they were like
early
first married. So I actually am named after the parish that they went to occasionally in Tucson, St. Melanie's. That's where my name came from. And I suspect that there's sort of a desire to honor the Eastern Catholic tradition of celebrating the Epiphany as like sort of the bigger of the two feasts.
Right. Okay.
There's probably some of that, and sort of taking some of the the emphasis, the weight off of Christmas.
Right. There's a Spanish tradition around
the Three Kings.
The Three Kings Day.
Right. And of course they were met and married in Tucson. So there's probably a lot of the Mexican culture as well.
I like it.
I don't know.
I like it. It helps us to keep celebrating Christmas long after Christmas Day.
Right. I mean, when I was really little, it always felt kind of awkward because we would get, a few presents at Christmas and all of my friends would have had, many more things to talk about. And then when we got our Epiphany presents, like by then
they were all done talking about
everyone at school, like they had long since got over talking about Christmas presents and there was nobody really to talk to about it. But it made it sort of different and special. And as we got older and old enough to like start to go to the store and buy things for each other, definitely hitting the post-Christmas sales was a bonus as a teen. Like
and avoiding the crowds.
Like my mom would drop us off at the mall the first Saturday after Christmas, and that's when we would do all of our shopping for each other. I mean, my sister and I used to like go shopping together, and I would find, some things that I liked and then, conveniently turn my back and she would buy them for me and vice versa.
Yes.
And we'd be so surprised that those were the...
Oh, wow. How did you know?
How did you know that this was exactly the skirt I wanted and in the right size even?
Now it's your Amazon wish list. So it's just slightly different form. So after that, we had a dinner at home with us and we'll talk about that in a bit. And then for dessert, like after dinner, after we cleaned up, we went to my brother's house, my brother John and his wife Patty, where the rest of the family was going to be. Except this year, we didn't have my sister Evie and her husband Pete and their kid, 8 kids. I can't keep track. I'll blame the booze. So because one of the kids had come down with the flu, and then it was starting to march through the rest of the family. So better not to expose my elderly parents to the illness.
I appreciate not being exposed to the flu too.
Right, and the rest of us. But it was a nice time. So like I said, my mom was there, my dad was there. My other siblings, and my brother John's kids were there, and it was nice to talk to my nephew John Paul, who is going to be commissioned a second lieutenant in the Army this coming May. And who's going to become a helicopter pilot, and just talking to him about his experience. He's the battalion commander cadet for his unit, the RTC unit at Providence College, and he's they're all very impressive young people, my brother's kids. Joe was impressive, working money manager, working at Fidelity, and Peter, who is working at a high-tech company and is also an aspiring screenwriter. And I don't just mean aspiring as in someday I'd like to write a script, as in he has actively shopping, like an agent shopping his script around to various production. There were negotiations, and I can't wait to talk about that when that time comes, because that's going to be really neat to talk about his production, the show he created.
And the big girls were thrilled, Isabella and Sophia, because Auntie Patty taught them how to play darts.
Yes, they have a new dart board, my brother.
So they played the 2 against 1, the 2 girls against Auntie Patty, and they beat her.
Right.
They were so excited. Like, it was our first time playing and we won.
Patty admitted later she's terrible at darts, but that's okay. Patty has always been a really great athlete, so to beat her at anything athletically inclined is a big deal. So that was a lot of fun. And then godparents gave godchildren presents. So my nephew Peter is Sophia's godfather. He gave her a Lego set, which was the same Lego, a Star Wars Lego set she already had. So he's like, okay, I also bought one for my other godson who wasn't there, one of my sister's kids. So he went and swapped them out. Here, take this one.
He'll never know.
I'll rewrap this for him, and so he can have that one. You have this one. So she got a new Lego set, and then Anthony got a Lego set from
his godfather,
John, right? John's his godfather. I keep track. So my brother John's got, which is a Lego set he already has, but they didn't have one.
In fact, it was the one that Santa had brought him that morning.
So, but there wasn't one to swap that one out with. So that went. So that needs to go. We need to go to the Lego store with that. Swap it out. And
he's already scheming to like earn some money so he can buy some more stuff.
Yes,
when we go.
He earned $5 hanging up clothes the other day, and then what was the other one? And then there was another gift. Oh, and then Peter, and then Benedict. His godfather is my brother Bernie, which is very fortunate because Bernie is the most generous, very generous gift giver, and Benedict is always getting these amazing gifts. So this year, Benedict got a drone. You know, a good one, not like a DJI, which is like the brand name drone, which are very expensive. But this is not a cheap thing either, and which worries me a little bit because I'm afraid he's going to like fly into a tree and break it or something.
To quote Benedict, Uncle Bernie is the best godfather ever. This is the most amazing present
best
ever.
Uncle, and yeah, he said he's the best uncle. So I posted that online, and I said, you know, all you other uncles. I mean, you could still pull this one out if you with the right gift, you know. so if this one have a competition, so that meant that the next day, on the Feast of St. Stephen. We went out to the big field in town, like the big sports fields here in our town, which is wide open space to do some test flights with the drone. It's as hard as I thought. It's actually easier than I thought. Like remote control planes when I was a kid were wicked hard to fly, but nowadays they're computer stabilized. The computers are in them. They try to keep them stable. It's still not easy. The thing kept flying away for some reason. Like getting it to come back was hard, so we need some more practice, and we landed in the mud a couple times. But we're excited about it. You got to go out when the weather's nice, when it's not too windy and it's not raining or snowing or whatever. So there are opportunities to flying are somewhat limited, and the batteries of them are small. They only last for like 15 minutes. So, and they only came with one battery. So I ordered some more batteries. So hopefully we can go out flying again soon. So very excited about it. And then it was interesting. He kind of got tired of that after a while. He was like, "Okay, I'm done with this. I want to go play on the playground with the other kids because the other kids already gone off to the playground to play." So that was nice. And then Friday came and you were sick as a dog.
Oh yeah, I got some sort of stomach bug thing. It was awful.
Luckily, you were the only one. I mean, Bella. We think Bella. She wasn't feeling good on Christmas Eve a little bit, but all that might have been something to do with the low blood pressure. Bit.
It was a stomach thing.
Well, in any case, nobody else got it.
Yeah,
knocking on the wood of my head here to
yeah.
be sure no, it's the I think incubation period has safely passed. So
we hope.
I'm too busy. So that was, and then we come to now, so we pretty much caught up. So that's been our very busy Christmas week. It was nice. It was a good Christmas.
Yeah,
better than some years. I mean, I remember a couple years ago we had a Christmas where we were all sick as dogs for the 3 weeks preceding, and then right through it. I mean, so this was a nice Christmas. It was. I think we made some good decisions about what things we were going to do, what things we couldn't do. We had wanted to go to La Salette to see the Christmas lights, and we had wanted to, but staying home and having dinner at home rather than try to do the potluck with my family and try to find something that Lucy could eat and stressing about that. All those sorts of decisions to go the lower stress route, I think all paid off.
Yeah.
We're learning something.
Eventually.
So let's talk about what the different foods we ate. So we talked about Christmas Eve. We had the lobster. And one of the things that happens when you cook lobster is you have the water that you boiled them in. And one of the things we've learned from that is don't throw it away. And so, you have all this. There's two ways to cook lobster: boil it or steam it. And so a friend of ours, Rebecca from Houston, sent me a note on Facebook. She asked me to teach her how to cook and eat lobster. And I'm thinking, I have to think about that. Like, how would I describe that? And I'm not sure I can either write it down adequately or I might have to make a video about. Cooking lobster is pretty straightforward, but eating lobster, there's a way to do it that maximizes your enjoyment of the lobster. So I might have to make a video about doing that.
Mm-hmm. Might have to.
Yes, which would require me to buy more lobster and eat it. Which
there's nothing self-serving about that.
The sacrifices I make for my audience. Yeah. So, The cooking is straightforward. So you can boil it or steam it. I choose to boil it. You put some water in the pot, enough that when you put the lobsters in, it'll cover them. You need a pretty big pot, and it's like 5 minutes per pound of lobster. If you of each lobster. So if you have a bunch of 1.5s, it's 7 minutes. It's pretty straightforward. So that's what we do. But you have all this water left over that's all lobster flavored. So what we do, and what we did this time is we boiled it down. We really concentrated it to, what did we get out of it? 2 quarts?
I don't know.
I think we had about 2 quarts of stock left over, and it's lobster stock. And so you pour it off. You could strain it if you want. It doesn't bother me. A little bit of foam here and there, but you what's it called? Reduce it to a quart, 2 quarts even, and then stick it in the freezer. And next time we're making fish soup or clam chowder or anything like that, just you take this out and you throw it in. You get instant lobster seafood flavor. It's perfect.
Yeah. So for those of us who didn't have lobster, and well, actually for like everybody had some, we also had some sauteed scallops.
Yep.
Some peel and eat shrimp with cocktail sauce, and some little mini crab cakes.
Yeah, pre-made.
Pre-made from
the store, Whole Foods. Yeah.
And then we also had what was it? Green beans.
Yeah. Melanie insists that there be a vegetable on the table.
There has to be a vegetable on the table, even though I'm really, literally the only one who ate it. Sophie might have had a couple of green beans. But there has to be something green on the table.
So for Lucy and Lucy, I had to completely take the meat out of the lobster for her, and for Anthony too, I think. For Ben, he wanted to do it himself, and Bella and Sophie mostly did it themselves. Although I had to give them, instructions as we went along. It's the time of year when the shells are thicker, so it takes a little more oomph to crack them. In the summer, the shells are thinner because they've recently molted, and so they're still thin. But winter, they're hardened up, although not as hard as I've had before. These were actually pretty good, and there was quite a bit of lobster left over at the end. I have to say,
right.
They all think they're going to eat a whole lobster, and this is why I usually get 2 lobsters because I can eat 2 lobsters, but I only got 1, and there was plenty of leftovers.
You are finally learning that with leftover lobsters, because the kids aren't going to eat as much as they think.
Right.
That there is actually
more than enough.
You will get more than enough.
Right, and plus all the other things that are on the table, like the shrimp and the other stuff. And we in the past, my eyes have been bigger than my stomach, and we've had way too much of everything. And this time, I think we did a better job of keeping the amounts down to a more reasonable level. But there was still leftover lobster, and so on the day after Christmas, in the past I've used it to make lobster omelets and other things like that. But this time I decided to make lobster salad. So a little bit of mayo, some celery,
like tuna salad.
Yeah, like a tuna salad, but lobster salad, like a lobster salad, lobster roll. But you took it a step further.
Yeah.
What you added?
So we had some leftover mango salsa from something or other, like the week before.
Yeah, we'd made a fish dish a week before,
and so it's mango with some bell pepper and red onion and cilantro and jalapeno and some orange juice, so I sort of took your lobster salad and I dumped it into my bowl of mango salsa and stirred it around, and I had lobster mango salad.
It was really good.
Which was amazingly good. I actually had this idea because years and years ago, before we had even met, I was in grad school at Boston College, and I would occasionally work for a catering company in Boston, weekends and summers to help
high-end catering events.
Yeah, really fancy catering events. Anyway, one of these really fancy catering events was this wedding, and I remember I foolishly didn't eat enough before I went to this event, and I remember standing in the buffet line serving out this beautiful lobster mango salad to the wedding guests. and thinking, gosh, this looks so good. I really want to I want to try it so bad. And of course, that was one of the things that they let us, the caterers were very generous and would let us eat the food that was left over.
But you couldn't eat during the event.
Not during the event, but like anything that came back to the kitchen, we were allowed to pick off of. There was none of that left, of course. And even if there had been, I suspect that the cooks or the manager would have grabbed it and not let the lowly servers have it. Anyway, so I had this in the back of my mind, like this mango lobster dish that I never got to try. I don't think it was exactly like spicy salsa sort of thing. Anyway,
the key with lobster is lobster is a very subtle taste, so you have to pair it with subtle things. Anything too overpowering, you're just going to lose the lobster. You might as well just have, tuna fish. I mean, it loses the flavor. So I once had it with lavender, and lavender is a seaside flower anyway, so it's got that oceanic.
It's a seaside flower?
Not lavender. Beach lavender is, yeah.
Oh. Okay.
Well, so this one, it was kind of flavored with lavender. It was really good, like really good pairing. And so mango is relatively subtle, It's got a flavor, but as a salsa, like compared to say, tomato salsa or whatever, mango salsa generally, I think pairs well with lobster.
Yeah, it was a really great combination. It was yummy.
And then so that was Christmas Eve, and then Christmas Day, we kind of went all out on food for Christmas this year. We don't spend it on presents, we spend it on food.
Yeah, pretty much.
And so we have an Amazon Prime subscription, and Amazon owns Whole Foods, and Whole Foods had a promotion for Christmas for Amazon Prime members where they had prime rib or standing rib roast, depending how you call what you call it, same sort of thing. On sale for Prime members, and so Melanie snapped it up. I mean, it was a bit of an indulgence, I would say.
It was.
Yeah, but it was so.
But this is the sort of thing that you buy not even every year, even like once a year.
We're not going to have this again for a while.
No. But I hadn't spent a whole lot on anything else this year, and I felt like there was a little bit of extra wiggle room in the budget, so. I went all out.
I have to admit, I was a little intimidated. I didn't want to ruin this wonderful cut of meat. And I looked up a bunch of different things, and I kind of went with the simplest recipe that cooks had.
Simple is best.
And it was basically in the oven. So first you salt it for 48 hours, like salt it and keep it in the fridge, which gives it a kind of an aging. It was kind of really interesting. Mm-hmm. And then in the oven, low and slow for several hours, and then a broil under the broiler for 5 minutes at the end. Like you take it out of the oven, do your other cooking, and then right before you're going to serve it, back into the broiler for 5 minutes to crisp up the outside and kind of reheat it. It came up perfect.
It was perfect.
It was perfect. And actually reading other things afterward, that's exactly what's been determined by like people like Kenji Lopez Alt at Serious Eats and other people, Cooks Illustrated and Alton Brown, all agree low and slow and then a quick sear at the end, like that under high heat. So luckily we did it the right way, and it was gorgeous. It was amazing. And then for leftover, we've been eating it for leftovers. You take one of the slices and you just throw it in a skillet with some butter, and I put the cast iron press on it to kind of push it down, and just sear it on both sides. It's
like a minute on each side.
Yeah, it's still amazing. So
it's actually what we ended up having for lunch today.
Right.
I just heated up the
last of it,
the very last of the rib roast for the kids.
So one of the fun things is I remembered that when my sister moved from her house in Maine a few years ago, she gave us a bunch of stuff from her pantry. Some of the stuff that we couldn't use and we ended up throwing away eventually because we just never used it. But we had some Himalayan pink salt. And I always thought, like, what am I going to use this for? Like, what is the purpose of this? And I remembered it was in there. I'm like, I had seen something about putting special salts on really expensive steaks. I'm like, maybe this would be nice. So I got a bowl of it out and sprinkled it on my steak. And the kids did some of that too. And it's these big hunks of salt.
It's like rocks.
It's like rock salt. And it actually was really good. It was really good. I mean, it's a little disconcerting at first, the crunchiness, but once you get your head wrapped around it, it was really good. I'm glad I did it. and I have to find more uses for it. We also made Yorkshire puddings, and usually I make a Yorkshire. I've talked about it before. We made one recently. It's in a 13x9, and so it's this big sheet, and you cut it into strips and that sort of stuff. Well, this time I decided to do it in a muffin pan to get the individual ones, which I kind of like a little more.
You get more of the crunchy outside and less of the like smooshy middle.
The smooshy middle, right. So I did make a mistake in that I put too much butter in each of the cups. Because when you put the batter in, it expands and it pushes the butter up and out and all over the oven.
We ended up with butter spattered all over the inside of the oven, and of course then that started burning and smoking, and we ended up with the house full of smoke.
A house full of smoke. The windows all open. Luckily, Christmas Day was a relatively warm day around here, but the house was just filled with smoke, and I just couldn't get.
Even when we came back after dessert at your brother's,
it was still full.
It was still really smoky.
And frankly, I was a little disappointed because you didn't say anything. You'd say it did, but I kind of tasted a little bit of smokiness in the puddings.
I didn't think that they tasted smoky.
Okay. So, next time I will put it over a pan either of water, which I'm not sure is a great idea because it creates steam in the oven, or a big sheet pan with kosher salt.
I think you'd be fine as long as you just put less in.
I still think they expand, they'll push the butter out and it will spill over still. I still would put something under it, I think. So that's what we had to eat. And we've made some other things since then, but we're going along, so I want to move on to another section, and we'll talk about those things later. What we're reading and watching, the second season of Netflix's Lost in Space reboot dropped on Christmas Eve, and I've been watching that, and it's actually been really kind of awesome. It's really good. I really, really, really like the family dynamic in the show of the Robinson family, especially between the husband and wife. There's this real marriage of equals. We're working together, a collaborative leadership model of parenthood, backing each other up, being the strength where the other is weak, and it's a really good show, a model of family in it. The other interesting thing, though, is the guy who plays John Robinson, the dad, is the son of the actress who plays Mrs. McGonagall, Dame, and she's also in Downton Abbey as the older lady. What's her name? I want to say Dame Edna, but that's completely not it. Oh, I knew it before, too.
I knew it until you,
So Professor McGonagall is, I'm going to look it up.
Maggie Smith.
It's so Maggie Smith's son plays it. So he doesn't have a British accent. He has an American accent. And it's really good. He's actually, I didn't
know Maggie Smith had a son.
Yeah, okay. I didn't even have a hint that he was British in this. So that was good. So watching that, really good. I'm up to episode 6 or 7 or so. I don't think that I need the qualifier. This is a family space show. I'm not too worried about some a scene in episode 8 where it goes all wrong and is completely inappropriate. This is not going to happen in this show. I hope. I hope. Then I've also just read a novella by Brandon Sanderson called Edge Dancer, which takes place in his Stormlight archive world. It was really good. It's actually an expansion of a story that's in the second book of his trilogy. It's sort of a side story featuring this side character, this street girl, this girl who lives on the street by her wits, and it's a really great character. She's really fascinating. She sort of breaks conventions and is very clever, and it's a really good story. I really love the Stormlight Archive books because I love stories with great world building, unique worlds, and this totally has it. So a lot of fun. And now I'm reading the third book in the trilogy called Oathbringer. So, but I think he's got a fourth book, so it's not really a trilogy anymore. He's got a fourth book coming next summer.
What did Douglas Adams say about his Hitchhiker's Guide, the increasingly misnamed Hitchhiker's Guide?
Right.
Because I think that went up to like 5 books eventually.
The increasing Hitchhiker's trilogy, you mean?
The increasingly misnamed Hitchhiker's trilogy.
Yeah.
It was like 5 books long or 6. I forget. It was
right.
a funny tagline.
Yes.
Which was so Douglas Adams.
Yep. And then I read another short story called "Wearing the Cape: A Christmas Carol." I'd also mentioned recently.
No spoilers.
No spoilers. I'd mentioned recently this series called "Wearing the Cape," which is a self-published series of novels about a world, our world, but in it an event happened that causes people to break through as superheroes or special powers or fictional people made real, various kinds. Much of it, the way they break through depends on their own self-perception at the time of when the breakthrough happens. It's hard to explain.
It's a response in the world. It's a response to trauma.
Yes,
like an emergency happens, and the only way you could possibly survive is if you had special powers. And so, for some reason, the mechanics of the world changed so that some people, not everyone, but some people, when they experience these like moments of high stress trauma, a bridge falls on you, instead of dying, you develop super strength and then you push the bridge off of you, or you turn into a vampire and you like dematerialize so the bridge doesn't kill you,
or you're fast as lightning, or you and some of it is culturally conditioned. In America, people become superheroes. In Asia, they become
bodhisattvas or whatever.
Yes, yeah, or like Japan, they become kami and various other things like that. So you have this world of all these super powered people, and what does that mean? How does that change the world? And it follows this one young woman from Chicago. She's from a Catholic family. The writer is Mormon, and so he does his best writing Catholic.
He does really well.
He does really well.
For a non-Catholic, he's up there with like
Orson Scott Card and
right. Yeah. Some of the best authors who really go out of their way to be
Stephen Sterling.
Right.
Yeah.
To try to get it right. And especially to try to there are moments in the series where, how would the Catholic Church deal with this? What would be the response? And I think he doesn't get all the details right, but I think he gets the general gist of, that is pretty much how Catholics would respond to
this. He has a priest going, we have to report this to the Congregation of the Doctrine of the Faith. Like, no, that's not actually how that would work. You would report it to your bishop, and he would deal with it. But yes.
But otherwise,
Yeah. So it's a great series, and then but this is a Christmas Carol, and so it's no spoilers, a Christmas themed super breakthrough event. Use your imagination. So a lot of fun. It's short, but you're reading the novel before this.
Yeah, because I'm kind of behind.
Right. So Melanie's been reading it too, which is unusual for her to read the same series that I do. So it's kind of fun.
This is one of the few that we both read.
Yeah.
I've also been rereading a lot of stuff because, I was sick for a couple of days, and my general MO when I'm sick and tired and stressed is to go back and reread old friends. So I've kind of put other things on hold.
This is interesting. I used to regularly reread books. Like when I was younger, I famously read The Lord of the Rings 16 times in the first between the ages of 13 and 22. I think I read it 16 times.
That's a lot of times.
Yes, I would reread it like several times a year. I was a voracious reader at that time. I would read 2 books a week.
Yeah, there are some books that I reread, but not a lot.
I don't find myself rereading it anymore. Like I don't. There are so many books. I mean, you just have to look at the shelves behind me. There's so many books that I haven't read that I want to read, and I have so little time to read them all. Because right now I do like the Goodreads challenge every year, and my regular challenge is 35 books, and I'm lucky if I hit that. I've hit 32 the last couple of years, and I want to read more, but just reading the new stuff. Never mind rereading the old stuff.
Yeah, for me, there's time. Like I don't know. I sometimes when I'm really really tired or sick, when I'm pregnant, I have just limited brain capacity. I want to read something, but I want to read something that isn't going to challenge me. Like, not, I don't know. I turn back to like my favorite. There's a few authors I go back and reread over and over again.
I would like to do that. There are some books I would like to reread. Our friend Jeff Miller, the Crit Jester, he reads 200 books a year. Yeah, some of those are audiobooks. And so he's constantly listening or reading. But still, wow. I mean, if I had that capacity, I would totally reread stuff.
I probably read, I mean, not quite that many, but somewhere in closer to that neighborhood, before kids. But
right. When you had time and
you don't have kids,
awakeness. Yeah. So, it's interesting, that idea of rereading when you as comfort, like instead of when you don't have the brain power to dig into something new. That doesn't usually happen to me. I usually just keep reading whatever I'm reading. But
I've been reading some like heavier stuff, and so just like like I do not feel like nonfiction when I'm feeling sick.
So I looked at my list of books this past year, and I read 2, maybe 3 nonfiction books. I usually read a lot more nonfiction. My goal for this year is to read a lot more nonfiction. I need to find more books that I will find interesting in the vein of the sorts of things I've been interested in reading lately. So I want to go back and find some good stuff, nonfiction stuff, to sprinkle into all the fiction I read. I read a lot of genre fiction, so whether it's sci-fi, fantasy, or spy thrillers, that's kind of my genres. So let's wrap things up with a little bit of discussion of this past Sunday, the Feast of the Holy Family. We had the visiting Jesuit priest again, Father Marcel. He's a Jesuit from Africa who is studying for his PhD at Boston College, and so he's been filling in at our parish. I'm not sure where he's from. I was telling Melanie that his accent is the Wakanda accent from Black Panther. So I'm not. I don't think he's from Wakanda, but maybe. But we don't do that here. But maybe he's maybe that accent is kind of Nigerian or something. I don't know. It doesn't sound a lot like Father Michael, but I'm not sure where he's from. It's maybe Central or West African or something. Marcel, it's a French thing, so
it's a French name.
Maybe one of the former French colonies. Anyway, he's very much Jesuit in the sense of that his homilies are very structured, very ordered.
I really like I have 3 points, and then you get, and he tells you what they're going to be, and then he gives them to you, and then he recaps, and then I noticed like his closing remarks, like at the end of Mass.
At the very end of Mass, yeah.
He recapped again. Like, yes. Don't forget. So family is a bridge.
A bridge to heaven.
And to community.
And to community, right.
Like a bridge, a factory.
A factory of the virtues.
Of the virtues. And
legacy.
A legacy.
Family is legacy. So he talked about family as, a factory for faith, hope, and charity.
Yes.
I like that. I like that imagery.
In which we create, construct, build virtue.
And then family is a legacy. We build a legacy for the future beyond our children, but like to
what kind of world. And here he got, of course, into a lot more of the social justice issues. What kind of world are we leaving for our children and our children's children, and what can we do to make the world
better?
Yeah. I really liked that.
Yeah, and then family as a bridge to heaven, a bridge to community. Family is our way of connecting with the reality beyond us through our family. So really, a really good homily. I really enjoyed that. He did start with an anecdote.
I love this story.
Yeah, so he says he learned early on, be careful what you wish for. He said he had this conversation with his father before his first communion. His father called him in and he said, "Marcel, what are you
going to say to Jesus when you receive him for the first time?"
Right. Apparently, this is a thing. You have to think of something to say to Jesus when you receive him for the first time.
Or maybe it was just his father.
Or yeah, and Father Marcel admits that he was a bit of a wise guy as a kid, of a bit of a free spirit. And he says to his father, "Well, you're not Jesus. Why do you want to know?
Why do I have to tell you?
Yeah, why should I tell you? You're not Jesus." And he says, "My father did not like that."
But
he said
he went on to think of a serious thing to say to Jesus. And so he said, when he received his first communion, he asked Jesus, "Make me a priest."
he says he made him a priest.
And obviously he got what he asked for because he is today a priest.
Right. So
that was beautiful.
So, and in fact, he said that to Sophie as he came up the aisle after Mass.
Yes, he said, be careful what you wish for.
So that was really good. And then
he also had really cool vestments that had
obviously his own.
Yes, Ad Maiorem Gloriam Dei embroidered on them with a beautiful
Ad Maiorem Dei Gloriam, AMDG.
Oh yeah, I always get the order wrong.
Yes.
It's a word salad. It's Latin. Word order doesn't matter. Right?
Right.
Anyway, with beautiful wheat and grapes, and Anthony noticed that the Dei was in a circle that looked like the host. Like there was gold embroidery all around it.
Very nice vestments.
Beautiful.
I love the readings for the Feast of the Holy Family, especially Sirach, especially now that I'm a father, because it says, "Children, obey your father." But it had meaning for me.
And fathers, do not vex your children.
I don't vex my kids. So, my son, take care of your father when he is old. Grieve him not as long as he lives. But actually, the thing that really brought it home for me this year was the December 29th was my dad's birthday. My dad is 87 this year, and I don't know how much longer we'll have him with us. But to hear
he's still going pretty strong.
He's still pretty strong. But whoever honors his father is gladdened by children. And take care of your father when he is old. And I know my brother Bernie is most closely doing that because he lives with my brother. But I think that I am honoring him and I care for him. Even if his mind fail, be considerate of him. And I think of that one too, because my dad is at that age where he repeats himself a lot and it's easy to kind of make fun, but it's be considerate, I will be there someday. I'm already at the stage where I'm repeating my stories.
That's true.
As podcast listeners can attest.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm constantly aware of the fact that my kids are going to be sitting where I am, and how do I want them to treat me is how I want to treat my parents, and it's very important. Revile him not all the days of his life. Kindness to a father will not be forgotten. Firmly planted against the debt of your sins.
That actually really struck me, is the idea that kindness to your parents helps to clear your slate from sin.
Right. I think in the sense of we do time in purgatory. We to atone for our sins, to purge ourselves of the attachment to sin and of the remnants of sin that still stain us after we've been forgiven by God in confession. And I think kindness to your parents, honoring your parents, which is one of the commandments, helps in that, is part of that process. It begins to help you purge yourself from that stain of sin here on earth before we even get to purgatory. Now, you said your favorite line is, where is it? Not who he stores up riches. He stores up riches who reveres his mother. Actually, it's one of my favorites. But yours is, he who obeys his father brings comfort to his mother.
And I think what really strikes me about that is sort of the corollary. The opposite is also true, that he who disobeys his father vexes his mother. So, but the idea that, it's that harmony. Mothers want their family to be harmonious, and we want our children to listen to their fathers for the sake of, harmony, for the sake of the child, for the sake of our husband. Like that itself is a mother's comfort. Like, we don't even need the kids to be doing something for us directly. Just listen to your father. Right. Every mother ever, right?
And the psalm is Psalm 128, and that's our psalm,
which was the one we chose from our wedding,
in which we prayed, "Your wife shall be like a fruitful vine in the recesses of your home, your children like olive plants around your table." And whenever we sit at dinner, I see all of my olive plants around our table.
little olive shoots.
Yes.
Sprouting up all over the place.
Yeah. I love the readings for the Feast of the Holy Family. They're among my favorite of the year. And I love the book of Sirach. It is such a a book full of such wisdom. It's like those books they used to give on graduation day, a father's wisdom for his child as you go out into the world.
Yeah, the Hebrews also had wisdom books.
Yeah, so this was the original version of that. So you don't have to go and buy one; just give him Sirach. So I think that about wraps it up. It brings us up to the current date. We'll of course be having New Year's coming up, and
tomorrow's New Year's Eve.
Yep, and then Lucy's birthday is coming up this week.
Friday, Lucy's birthday,
which is the day we're finally all together going to go see Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker.
Lucy thinks that is like the best birthday present ever.
It is. She's already planning to sit on my lap for the movie.
For the entire movie. Well, she sat on my lap for most of Midnight
Jedi.
Mass.
Oh, Midnight Mass. Yes.
So you get her. For I get her
for the movie. So they've been dying. When can we go see the movie? When can we go? And we would have gone earlier, except there were no seats anywhere for 7 people. So finally, everyone else is back at school and at work. We're going to go on Friday morning for a matinee, which will work out perfectly.
Yeah. We still haven't managed to get back to homeschooling yet. We're still on.
That's true.
We're still on Christmas vacation.
Yes, that's coming. Maybe Thursday.
Last night, Sophie said, "So are we going to do schoolwork tomorrow?" And I said, "Honestly, Sophie, I don't know."
She did it.
Did she? Did she get up?
She was doing her work this morning.
Good girl.
When I got up. She does it in the dark in the dining room with her breakfast.
And poor thing, because she's the only one who did any work today, because I slept until 9 this morning and you had a dentist appointment.
Yes.
Which is one of the reasons why I slept in, probably because I didn't hear you moving around. And,
yeah.
And I had thought about, at least maybe doing our afternoon portion of school, and then the afternoon came and it didn't happen either. So
we'll get back to it. This is why we do homeschool through the summer, so that we don't feel pressure at these times to make up for, because we're not abiding by the public school schedule. We school year round and take breaks as necessary. And
I think that we're still feeling the necessity of break.
Right. We'll get to it. It's coming. We'll get back to it. They'll be fine.
Yeah.
All right. So let's wrap it up. I want to take a moment to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create Raising the Bets, including Daniel S., Denise I., Joseph L., Luis D., and Michael C. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue Raising the Bets and all the shows at StarQuest. You can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. I do want to note that this is the last show for 2019. In fact, this is the last of all of the SQPN shows to release for 2019. The next show will be tomorrow when the Secrets of Doctor Who comes out. So
new year, new decade.
A new year, new decade. Although some pedants will tell us it's not a new decade, but we'll just go with it.
Whatever.
And I do want to thank everyone who supports us and everyone who listens. I mean, even if you aren't a financial supporter, if you listen, you are a supporter of the network. True. And we are so grateful for you listening to us and supporting us and praying for the network.
Prayers count as support too.
They do.
For sure.
And our mission, which is to share the gospel with you and the world in new and interesting ways that are accessible. We're not preachy types, I don't think, in any of our shows. We're trying to just be ourselves and be Christ for you in all of the ways that is possible in this world we live in today. And sometimes it's by exploring pop culture, sometimes it's talking about recipes, and sometimes it's talking about the joyful mess of family life. But whatever it is, we are so grateful that you listen and share our shows with those around you. So that's it from us. You can comment on the show by going to sqpn.com/bets, BETTS, or the SQPN Facebook page, facebook.com/StarQuestMedia, or send an email to bets, BETTS, @sqpn.com. And if we have any relevant links, like to some of the books we're talking about, we'll have those in our show notes on sqpn.com/bets. If you can, we will greatly appreciate if you'd write a review at Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts from, and share the podcast with your friends. Help us grow this community and reach more listeners. Until next time, I'm Dom Bettinelli.
And I'm Melanie Bettinelli.
Thank you for listening to Raising the Bets on StarQuest.